Heading into the draft today, you and Mark both talked about how important it was to have hardworking players and change the identity of the team. Are you thinking that you're leaving Pittsburgh right now with 7 players who fit that mold?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you have to have a certain level of talent to play in the National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. So that's the first criteria that the prospects that we have on our list have to meet. After that, in the second half of the season, we dive into the areas of character, competitiveness, and size, strength, those areas. And these players that we selected today fit the bill. I mean, they all have the base talent and better, and they bring a lot of character and compete and personality and the passion to play the game, passion to become better players and put forth that effort into development.
I know you're not going to want to do that, so I'm going to try anyway though. If you're going to judge this draft, I know that you have to wait a couple of years to see how these kids pan out, but I think right after the 2007 draft, when you picked up guys like McDonough and PK and Max Pacioretty, you knew that you had a good crop there. How's your feeling today compared to what it was like in 2007?
Well, we're excited today. Only time will tell. I mean, we have to give it 5 years to see where these young prospects are. It's too much to put a lot of pressure on their shoulders now. I mean, we've drafted them now. It's our job to help them develop and take part in our development camps and training camps. And the people that we've added, Breezer and Marty in the player development areas, we have to educate them and give them all the resources to help them get better as players and develop.
How many of these kids have you actually seen play personally? I know you're on the road a lot, you're flying around across the country, globetrotting. How many have you seen of the 7 kids that we've drafted?
I've seen all of them play.
So you can give a pretty good review on each one of them.
Yeah. Is that what we're going to do next?
Well, we are going to do that, but first I'm going to go through some of them. Obviously, Galchenyuk would be the marquee player that we took this weekend, and you don't want us to talk. I heard you in your press conference twice mention to not put any pressure on him to be in Montreal. So when he is eventually in Montreal, how big of an impact do you see him having on the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, that's another difficult question. Only time will tell. I mean, we project him to be for sure a top 2-line center, and there's a good chance he could become a number 1 center. I mean, but he's got work to do, to improve physically, and he missed the entire season this year, so he has to catch up with the hockey end of things, and that'll all come together. But we see unlimited potential for Alex, and his drive and passion, determination, commitment to become a better player, not to become a better player, but as he told us, to be one of the best players in the National Hockey League. He just doesn't want to play in the National Hockey League. He wants to be the best. And with his talent and work ethic and commitment, he's got a chance to do that.
How do you judge that when you're in the interview in the Combine? I know Mark said that the Combine was really what sold him on Galchenyuk. What was it in that meeting? What were you asking him that really sold you guys on?
It's not exactly what we were asking him. It's the way that he handles himself, presents himself, and looks you in the eye. He's got that look of determination that we've seen in other players that have been really successful in the National Hockey League.
For a prospect sitting in the stands for an entire round, and then he's dropping down, he's ranked pretty high up, it can be pretty nerve-wracking to see your name drop lower and lower on the draft board. But for a guy like you, how exciting is it to see a guy like Collberg drop down? He was ranked, what was he, 3rd or 4th overall third among European skaters. That must have been pretty exciting for you guys at the table.
Yeah, well, we had our fingers crossed all last night. I couldn't sleep. We were hoping that he'd still be there, and we had to wait for 2 picks before us, and thankfully he was there. But there's always, like I've said, there's usually guys that are available early 2nd round that people projected as 1st round picks, and Sebastian's one of those.
Do you almost kind of feel like you got 2 1st-round picks with a guy like him?
Exactly. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's almost an extension of the 1st round, those first few picks in the 2nd round, and they're very valuable.
He's a bit of a smaller guy in terms of his build. He hasn't put a lot of meat on his bones yet, and he was playing with some adults in the Swedish Elite League, obviously. Do you think this is a situation where stats just don't tell the whole story with no points?
No, if you take a good look at him, I mean, off the ice, he's got the big legs.
Yeah.
He's built like Daniel Alfredsson, and he plays a similar type of game as Alfredsson does. He's a great skater. He's on the puck. He's a leading goal scorer for the Swedish under-18 national team in all the tournaments they played.
Yeah.
And he scored some huge goals in the shootout for Sweden at the World Juniors in Calgary this past winter.
I've read a lot of things about how he's not afraid to go into the corners, and he's not, obviously his upper body's not as big as maybe you would expect for a guy that's going to be gritty like that. How impressive is that for a guy like you to watch a smaller guy be willing to sacrifice himself like that?
That's important. I mean, if the player's undersized, and if 5'11" is undersized, then it's vital for a player like that to have those qualities to be able to survive and play and compete at the National Hockey League level.
How long before you get him in the gym this summer?
Yeah. Well, they train with their teams in Sweden, so he's training with Frölunda. Actually, it's a good story. I visited Frölunda. I was to watch practice and interview Sebastian after his practice. So we were there, we took a tour of the facility. They have outstanding off-ice training facilities there. Great practice rink. We watched practice. He practiced for about an hour. It was very hard, difficult practice, intense, a lot of skating. We were to meet with him after, and he got called up to play that night, 2 hours later, in a game in the Swedish Elite League with the big team for Frölunda. So we actually drove him over to the game.
You guys drove him in your car?
Yeah, we drove him with my Swedish scout, Krista Rockstrom, and we waited, watched the game. He was supposed to be a 13th forward. He ended up playing on the second line, getting a lot of ice time, and he did very well, and then we met with him after the game. He was actually, another funny story, you know how sometimes in junior and different levels of hockey, they have a player where the fans can come and meet after the game. And he was that guy. He was on the program cover, and there was fans for the big team.
Oh, wow.
And the fans were all there to see him after the game. We had to wait. We had to interview him. We still had to wait for all the fans to come up and him to sign autographs. And
it's a good time for you guys to go visit him then.
It was perfect. Yeah, it all worked out. You know, who would have thought?
You gave Chicoutimi forward Charles Hudon a pretty unique 18th birthday gift today, drafting him in the 5th round. What are you hoping to see in terms of development from Charles?
Well, first of all, it was exciting to be able to select Charles at that point in the draft. He's going to have a very busy summer. He's part of the Canadian World Junior Team training camp, and they're heading over to Yaroslav, Russia for a 2-game series over in Yaroslav, and then they come back to Halifax and play 2 more games. Up until that point, he's going to be training here at our practice facility in Brassard and with our strength coach, Pierre Allard.
I know you watch a lot of games and a lot of practices. You'll visit with the kids and you'll talk to their parents and coaches and some of their friends, so you do your due diligence. But at what point, when you're talking about an 18-year-old and projecting them as an NHLer, at what point is it kind of still a crapshoot?
Well, I can't say it's a crapshoot. Everything's calculated, and our job as a scouting staff is to project. It's all about projection. We're projecting them, the young players, of what they will be as pros down the road, and that may take anywhere from 2 to 6 years. So we tried to look at their potential as an athlete, their injury potential, their growth potential, and their potential to improve their skating and their skills and their overall hockey ability.
You obviously have 7 players that you drafted this weekend, only 1 is a defenseman. So what was it about Dalton Thrower that really caught your eye in terms of the
Well, we like what Dalton brings. He brings a little bit of everything to the game. He's got a good package of skill, of toughness, of grit, physicality, and character. He's gone through a lot in his life. His parents have gone through some difficult medical issues, and he's gotten through that. And we've seen Dalton quite a bit. As you know, we have Darren Dietz, one of our drafted prospects from last year, plays with him in Saskatoon. We know a lot about this player, and we're happy to add him to the fold.
Did you talk to Dietz at all to get any insider info?
Yeah, I sure did last week when he was in Montreal for the development camp.
Get some insight onto his character.
Yeah, he's one of his best friends too, so I don't know if I got the truth.
When you look at him too, he describes himself as a gritty defenseman, but he doubled his point, well, more than doubled his point production from year to year. What do you attribute that to?
He's got skill. He's got skill, and he can play at the junior level. He plays on the power play, and they said he brings a combination of physicality and skill. So it's a nice package. Although he's just 6 feet, but he plays a hard game. He's difficult to play against.
Brady Vail can play all 3 forward positions, and he mentioned to us during our interviews that he actually plays D from time to time. How big is versatility for you if this kid can play pretty much anywhere you need him to play?
Well, it's a great asset for the player. You know, coaches are able to use him in different situations, different positions, so it's a great asset for him to have. He's a player that we think his best is yet to come. I think he's got a lot of potential, and a lot of it's been untapped right now. He's got outstanding work ethic and commitment, but he's got very good hockey sense. And he plays in a great situation with the Windsor Spitfires, with very good coaching staff there. And it's a good situation for him to continue his development.
We'll go through a couple more of the kids that we haven't talked about yet. Tim Bozon, what do you think he's going to bring to the organization?
Goal scoring ability. Tim came here as a rookie from Europe to the Western Hockey League. Very difficult situation for him to play in from where he was coming. And he scored 36 goals, added 30 some odd assists. And he also competes and works hard too. but he's got natural goal scoring ability.
When you guys are sitting at the table during the draft, how much are the area scouts pushing for their guys? Are they really trying to convince you?
After the first round, I encourage the area guys to really push on their guys, and that's they see the players from their area the most, so that's why it's important for them to stand up when they really believe in a player.
So when you look at the last player that you drafted this year, Eric Nystrom,
yeah.
what was it that they were really pushing? What were the traits about Eric that really caught their eyes?
Well, he's a smooth skater and great playmaking ability, and we think that he potentially could be our sleeper pick here. A funny story, I went all the way up with our Swedish scout, Christer Rockstrom, up to northern Sweden to see Modo play, actually to see Samuelsson play. Little did I know later on, about a month later, he'd end up with the Edmonton Oil Kings. I spent all that time interviewing him up there, going all the way up to northern Sweden, and Samuelsson ends up here. But fate would have it that I saw Eric Nystrom play in 2 league games. It was very good. And so we lucked out there being able to see him, and so I was able to give our Swedish scout, Christer Rockstrom, support on him. And
was he on the radar already before you saw him there, or was that just happenstance that you were there and saw him?
No, Christer had an eye on him.
Yeah.
And he's surrounded, he's in a great development situation as well. Ulf Samuelsson's the head coach of their Swedish Elite League team in Modo, and he's got good support. Marcus Naslin is the GM, and Peter Forsberg, they're both up there. So he's in a great development situation as well.
If you're to look at the draft that we just went through, 2012, what did you add to the Montreal Canadiens this weekend?
We added a little bit of everything. We think we restocked the cupboards with skill and talent, and some versatility and some physicality. We think we had a little bit of everything. We didn't go heavy into defense, just the way the draft fell, but we did add 1 defenseman. Last year we added quite a few D-men over the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that we were able to add some offense to the cupboards.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Trevor. We'll talk in 2017 to see how this draft went.
Oui, merci beaucoup.